I tell people if you can get rid of the illusion of time and you can get rid of the outcomes, forget about the outcome and forget about the time. There's a reason why I don't see 9,000 people a week in my practice.
Facts.
And the reason is people think that they should have gotten results in a certain time frame.
That's it.
And B, if they either get results or they don't get results, they think either I'm fixed or it doesn't work.
Right.
And those two mindsets destroy future healing for that individual.
It all speaks for itself. Grinding in silence, ain't nothing to tell. When we step on the court, we gon' bring it to light. And we stop and pop like we caught of the light. Stop asking what's wrong with me. You already know there's a dog in me. If there's no stopping my focus, man, make sure all my people gon' ball with me. Yeah, I came to compete, I'm a dog with it. Yeah, I came to compete with my paws in it.
What's up, CTA family? Welcome back to another episode of the Compete Mentality Podcast. The Compete Mentality Podcast exists to motivate, educate, and inspire you guys to compete. Our definition of competing is doing what God is calling you to do, even when it's hard. My name's JD, Jordan Delks, your podcast host. I'm so fired up to be with you here today. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're a faithful listener, we are so grateful for you, and truly, this time each and every week is so valued. Before we dive into our guests, and I'm so fired up for our guests, I want to give you a couple announcements. Number one, Dream Season University starts here in January. Check it out, competetrainingacademy.org. Level up your mind, body, spirit, 8-week session in person right here at the barn. Also, the Compete Mentality Mindset course. If you live out of state, we got people all over the country, different countries listening to this podcast. You can dive into the Compete Mentality yourself now with our online course, also on our website, competetrainingacademy.org. And without further ado, I am so fired up to introduce our guest today, Dr. Mike Wasserstrom, lead doctor at Premier Chiropractic. Dr. Mike, thanks for joining us today, my man.
You got it, man. It's a pleasure to be here. It's honor to be here with you, man.
And truly, it's so cool you're here today. Dr. Mike has had a massive impact on my life, my family's life, a lot of our friends. We've told so many people about Premier, and a little bit of how we got to Premier. A good friend of ours whose life was impacted by your work at Premier said, hey, Corinne, for those of you listening on our podcast each and every week, you know about Corinne, our traumatic brain injury miracle that my wife works with each and every day. Said, hey, Corinne needs to get involved at Premier. They're doing amazing things. And honestly, Dr. Mike, I had never really dove into chiropractic work, like for myself. Yeah. Didn't see the value in it. I just wasn't educated. And then when we took Corinne, and a couple things blew me away. One, when you walk in the door, it's a vibe, it's energy, and it's a culture.
Yeah.
And I felt it up front, just blown away. Yeah. And then when we went back and did our initial meeting, I'm sure you have a term for it at Premier.
Yeah, it's care plan recommendations. We go through care plan, we explain why we do what we do, how we do what we do. Yeah.
And when I got the how and why of chiropractic, I was like, sign me up, sign my kids up, sign my wife up, signing Corinne up. I'm telling everyone about this because we talk about all the time in mindset training that mind, body, spirit's all connected.
100%. Absolutely.
We're going to dive into a lot about that.
Oh, yeah.
So that is a long intro to Dr. Mike and how we got introduced. And Dr. Mike, I just want to thank you for the impact already that you've had on our lives.
It's a pleasure. I mean, it's honestly people like you. It's stories like Corinne. It's stories like you and Mason and all these guys that you've sent down to us that this is what we do for. You know, it's life-changing if you're in the right hands, right approach, and you've got the Holy Spirit behind it. So it's like you put all of it together, and that's how you get the results that you acquire. You know?
My results, just up front already, over a year ago, I'm coming up on my year anniversary of coming to you, and over a year ago, high blood pressure, different health things that I wanted to get under control, my blood pressure is perfect now.
Yeah.
And it is a huge testimony to your work.
Most people wouldn't, when they hear chiropractic, they think back cracking and pain and neck pain and back pain and symptoms and to be honest with you, most of our profession is tailors to that.
Right.
Which is why we talked about this. The past 40 chiropractors on the way down to me.
Yep.
But the fact of the matter is that high blood pressure is a symptom of an underlying issue that the body's out of balance.
Right.
Right? And since everything is controlled and run through the brain and nervous system, and we live our lives through that brain and nervous system, when we have stress and trauma to that system, it creates an adaptation. Yep. Our brain's very intelligent, as you know. It creates an adaptation to our system, and our body creates imbalances to let us know that things are not at homeostasis.
Right.
And that's whatever it's high blood pressure, whether it's low blood pressure, whether it's hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. The body is doing everything it can with what it has to work with because it's learned to adapt that way.
I think that's the coolest thing, how God designed our bodies to tell us everything we need to know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a gas light, gas light comes on in the car. It's not the light that's the problem, right? It's not your blood pressure that was the problem. Because the organs are not independent of themselves. They run through an electrical system of impulses.
Absolutely.
So when that electrical system has been beat down, and I always make a joke, but in our huddles we talk about how the nervous system is very much like a piñata. Right. We've had it our entire lives. It's been beat down and beat down and beat down and beat down through trauma and emotions and chemicals and stressors and environmental changes. And eventually it reaches a breaking point. Yep. And once that breaking point hits, the body gives you a signal. Right. Problem is in our society, when that signal comes, because we don't like it, we don't like the way it makes us feel. Right. We think, okay, we need to put a chemical in there to fix an electrical problem. And a chemical never fixes an electrical problem. Never. Only electrical work fixes electrical problems. That's it. Right? So really, when people think chiropractic, they think bone cracking. It's really not that at all. It's mastering the art of being able to know where the electricity and the impulses are off between brain and body. Yep. And making those connections so the brain and body can feed that impulse where it needs to be. And when that happens, innate takes over and the body knows what to do.
In my mindset training, I use the word alignment a lot. Would that be a good word there?
You're on point on that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we say all the time in mindset training, align, don't grind. Right. Like when you're operating out of your uniqueness and who God created you to be, it's alignment. Right. You're not grinding. It doesn't feel like work.
I mean, you think about as a metaphor for basketball, right? You look at some of these players when they tell the people, when someone's on fire, when Mason broke that record at Mackey a year ago. Right. He got adjusted that morning, by the way, just so you know. He was unconscious. They use the word unconscious in basketball, right? Right. It's like the mechanics. Yeah. You know what to do. Yep. Get your head out of the way. Yeah. And let the body and brain become connected, and that's when the magic happens. Yeah. Right? So alignment is everything.
Yeah. And we're already diving into good stuff right here. I love it, but I want to talk about, kind of as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, just like when I walked in and the culture and the vibe and the energy that's set up in place. Now I could feel it. Right. It's an experience. I drive an hour and 15 minutes. In your program, it was 3 times a week for a while. Then it was 2 times. Now I go once a week. Right. But 3 times a week, an hour and 15 minutes down and back. Committed for our family to do that. It was because of the core values and the culture that you've established. That's how I knew we were aligned, that the Delks family was aligned with what you guys do, because mindset's one of your core values, one of the pillars of Premier. Yep. Tell us about the pillars of Premier, those core values, and what they mean.
Well, I got to credit this to my partner, Dr. Matt, because he created, he's the one who kind of, I've been practicing for 25 years. I brought him in on about 10 years ago. Yep. And we were pushing to change our model, because our model was not always this way. And our model was not pain-based to begin with. But we just didn't have the systems down. We didn't have the culture down. And Matt kind of pushed me to to make these changes over time and change and establish the culture of what we needed to create to be who we really wanted to be, and allow us to be able to take care of people. Because really, I had this foundation all along. It took another creative mind like him to come in and kind of show me,
cool.
Hey, this is what we want. This is what you want, and this is what we need to do to get where we need to be.
Right.
And this is what allows us to, serve God in the best way we possibly can. So,
100%.
So I credit him to everything of it because he kind of pushed me to that model. And it's kind of like, and you are in your business too. So when you are grinding, before I brought Matt and his wife Kara on, it was just me.
Yeah.
And I did everything.
Yep.
And I did everything because prior to him coming on, I was taken advantage of in my business.
Sure.
Because I was very trusting and I let people do a lot of it. So had a lot of hard time relinquishing trust. But eventually a lot of things happened in my life that kind of opened up my eyes to who God wanted me to be.
Wow.
And I brought in Matt and Karen and I trusted them.
Yep.
And it took me a while to gain that trust back. But once I did, I realized that, look, I don't have to do everything myself.
Yep.
And the fact of the matter is, the less I do myself, and the more I have people around me to help kind of mold this, and that's eventually what created where we are today.
Right,
so,
right.
So I always had the intent down, but it took a team and a village to get where we are, and we're still a work in progress, right? Nothing's ever perfect, and we're always striving to be excellent at what we do, not for perfection, but to strive for excellence. And it's taken us where we are, and now as a byproduct, we're able to see the people like you guys who come and value what it is that we do, and get to see the benefit and to see the miracles that happen in our office. It's awesome.
I love all of that, Dr. Mike. I want to dive into more of the mindset side when I come visit you each week. Like, I love everything about it, but I also love just our conversation and the one-liner gem or whatever you're dropping to me. How you doing, man? And we chop it up for a second. But like, I remember you saying one time that like, when you dive into the mindset side of who you are, mind, body, spirit, and like you actually do take the time to do the deep work on yourself. It's everything. It's a game changer. You're transformed. Romans 12:2 says you will be transformed by the renewing of your mindset.
Yeah.
When was that moment for you in your life where you started learning about the mind, you learning about the brain, and that kind of like, how did that begin for you?
Yeah, so it was when I first moved here. I moved here in '98, and I knew nobody. I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm from
New Jersey. Yeah.
So I knew nobody here. I moved here because my then girlfriend, now wife, was getting her master's, and she was like, "Why don't you just move up here and work here?" And I moved up here. I had no idea how to operate a business.
Yep.
I really had no business doing anything at that point in time. And I was raised probably like most people. I was raised by my parents who taught me things like, they used to say things like, you'll never amount to anything. Money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford it. They use these terms consistently over and over again.
Yes.
And it kind of, it kept my shelf life from a potential standpoint very limited, right? And they didn't know any different. Like their parents grew up in poverty. My grandfather was a cop in New York. My grandmother used to build bombs during the war. Like they grew up in this small little apartment in Queens, New York, and so they migrated over. So they very lack mindset, and again, it wasn't their fault. Just kind of what they kind of molded into.
Right.
So my parents kind of adopted the same thing. So when I got here and knew nobody, after about 2 months in, I said to my wife, I was waking up with anxiety. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make this. I don't know if I'm going to do this. I know what I need to do. I know what I want to do. I know I want to help people, but I have no idea how to do it, and I'm scared. I woke up. I remember I would wake up in the middle of the night sweating with anxiety because I had fear, so much fear paralyzing me as far as the unknown of what I was doing. And I had all these old neurological patterns in my mind keeping me and preventing me from becoming who I was.
Right.
So I started reading, started learning. I had some mentors mentor me to teach me that, they're asking me questions like, what are you doing to work on your mind every day? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you listen to on the way to work? I listen to Howard Stern.
Right.
What do you, this is what I'm doing, right? So
I get it.
And basically what they taught me was, if you are not working on your mind every day to build who you want to become, then you're going to be the same person you are now 6 years from now.
Yep. 100%.
So I had to learn.
Everything matters.
Yeah, everything. I had to learn. I had to shut down everything. I would get to the point where I would have tapes.
Yep.
I
love this. No, I'm
no CDs.
I remember those.
Tapes.
Oh yeah.
Put it in your car, right?
Yes.
So I had cassette tapes, and everywhere I went, and everywhere I did, every time I worked out, I had a tape in and a headphone on.
That's it.
And I was literally just working on programming,
rewiring.
Mindset, right? I would record my own affirmations to myself and listen to it over and over and over and over and over again. I would read something empowering every morning.
Yep.
I'd started journaling.
That's it.
I started affirming.
Yep.
My bathroom mirror you could barely, there was a little section for me and my wife to look at our head.
Yep.
Because every single section of my mirror was taped with sticky notes with affirmations.
Yes.
I am, first person, present tense, right, all throughout it. And then I would drive in my car. It was all over my dash. And I basically was like, look, I got nothing to lose here. This doesn't cost me anything. You know what I mean? This does not cost me anything. I'm going to see. These guys have been telling me I paid money to that I didn't have.
Yep.
I hired a coach, put it on a credit card that I could not afford to pay.
Absolutely.
And I was like, look, I'm going to do this, and if it's sink or swim, right?
That's it.
It's either sink or swim. So he told me to do everything. Everything he told me to do.
Yep.
I was like, I'm doing.
Yep.
So I did everything he told me to do, and I worked on reprogramming my mind, and then it just started happening. Like 6 months, a year in, I started seeing all the fruits of my labor of not working on my business. Mm-hmm. I wasn't working on my business.
No.
And that's something that I used to listen to Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
And Jim Rohn said, if you work on yourself more than you work on your business, you will see your business flourish around you because it is a reflection of you.
That's it.
So when you talk about changing the culture, I worked on myself.
That's it.
I got connected to God. Like the whole story of that is just a whole. We can talk 6 hours about that one. But that's how, like Matt. Again, I told you Matt was pushing me to do this. But the second I let go, it became what it became.
Right.
And granted, we remodeled and you have visuals, right? But it became what it became. And as soon as I let go, and gave it all to God, everything.
He gives it,
it's unbelievable how much resistance, and we talk about in the chiropractic world, we talk about the word interference.
Yep.
Whether it's interference from your diet, interference from your mindset, interference from the toxicity that we have on an everyday. Interference blocks your potential.
Yep.
And when you have interference in your system, and you're not the version of who God made you.
100%.
And if you remove that interference, it's like, we don't have to give you anything that you already have. You have all the success and the potential inside you already, and the only thing that's blocking that is the interference that you do between the right and left ear, man. That's mainly it, right?
That is it.
So it's, people are like, well, I don't want to do this. It's quirky. It's new agey. I'm like, dude, no, it's not. It's in the Bible. It tells you that the interference in your head prevents you from becoming God's version of you. So if you remove that, but you have to work on it, because neurology, right, just like an organ develops a habit of how to function, or a lung develops habit of how to function or dysfunction.
Yes.
It has to be retrained.
Has to be.
And if you're not consciously focusing on the retraining of that neurology, there's no way you're going to get there anything different. And that's no difference with your mindset. I know people will love to try to change their diet. And the biggest thing they need to change before they change their diet is they need to change their mind first.
This is already one of the all-time great conversations on this podcast, and I love everything you said there. Mind, body, spirit, all connected. If one is off, they're all off.
Yeah.
So there's no better investment into taking care of your mind, body, and spirit and establishing those habits, those weekly, daily things that you have to do to be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
I love what you're saying. And it's all in the Bible. It says it there to journal. It says it to meditate. Psalm 23:4. For those who meditate on God's word will be like a tree planted by rivers of water that yield fruit in its season and its leaf does not wither. Picture that huge tree, listener, alongside a creek bank, that's roots are just a huge system that are unwavering. That's what you can be when you meditate. Dr. Mike, I want to talk about the I am affirmations. I love those. I do them myself. Our clients do it. Tell us specifically, and I know that you raised your children with I am affirmations. Tell us about I'm a young parent, 6 and 4 years old, are my kids. How old are your kids?
I have a 20-year-old and 18-year-old.
20-year-old and an 18-year-old. Yep. When did you start doing I am affirmations with them, and how has that played a part in their life?
Well, we used to read, when they were little, we had books of, positive self-image books that we would read to them.
Yep.
And those were kind of the books that we read to them before we go to bed. But I started teaching them this at a really, really young age. And, it's amazing to see when you don't think that your kids are listening to you.
Right. They are.
They're listening to you. And they model what it is that you're doing. Not only doing, but speaking, right? So I taught these kids to do this when they were young. And what's amazing is that some of the things, both my kids are amazing, but my son Ben, who's in high school right now, he's getting ready to graduate soon. My older son Jackson, you talk about a kid who is against all the odds. He's not a big kid. He's Braden Smith's size, 5'11".
Yep.
6'1" in the program.
Yep. Oh yeah. Program height. I love it.
But so not overly big, right? But he, as a freshman in high school, his goal, he would have. We're Giant fans in my house, obviously.
I love it.
Don't hate me for that, but we're Giant fans in my house.
Yep.
And he would have pictures of Odell, pictures of the New York Giants, and he didn't know that he was war planning and mapping and visualizing. Somewhere in his subconscious, I knew he knew how to do this, but he had all of this in his room, and everything he had in his room was the version of the person he wanted to become.
Yep.
And then it really hit me when I walked into his room one day in high school, and I saw the sticky notes on his mirror. And he never saw me in that version of his life putting sticky notes. Yep. Because I eventually translated that to journal, and I don't show people that, so that was where my sticky notes were. But I saw it on his. Yep. And I was like, oh boy. So then he becomes a starter his sophomore year. He balled out his junior year. Yes. Balled out his senior year. Goes to IU, plays football at IU, and I went down to him after we moved him down. In a couple months down the road, I went down to visit him, and I go into his bathroom, and it's written in black marker all over all the things that he wanted to accomplish. Right. And one of the things was all academic Big Ten. He just got it. I just found out yesterday. So and I tell him all the time, I'm like, do you see how what you focus on? It's like I always tell him it's a pilot with coordinates, man. If you don't know where you're going, and you don't have the coordinates down to the specifics, how do you know you're going to get there? You would never go on a plane and be like, hey, we're going to Vegas. We have no coordinates to get there. I have no map to get there, but we're just going to wing it. You don't trust that. You need to have the exact coordinates to where you're going, where you're getting. And more importantly, you have to, and if you say it repetitively over enough and you think it and you visualize it over enough, it becomes who you are. Right. You become that person. Right. And really, the emotion behind it has to become that person. I look at, not to derail, but I look at Braden. Yep. Because he played basketball, Braden, when he was in third grade. Yep. So I've watched Braden mature his entire life. Yeah. And I see some of the things he posts on Instagram, all the positive affirmations.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kid is in it right now.
His mindset
you can tell. mindset is different
Yeah.
than it was when he was a kid.
100%.
And it's paying fruits of his labor, it's paying off. You know what I mean? So it's amazing what the I am statement does, man.
Absolutely. Braden Smith is a different animal. I'll never forget the first time I trained him in West Lafayette, and just you could feel it when he walked into the gym. You could feel it in every drill, just the way he attacks basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But with successful people, the way you do anything is how you do everything.
Absolutely. And that's the one, if you ask my kids what the one quote that I say all the time, how you do anything is how you do everything. That's literally the one thing they say over and over and over and over again. And the thing about Braden, and this is just something just for every aspect of life,
right.
And I hope he translate this, I think he's going to be an NBA ball, but I think even when he gets out of it and gets into his own business, whatever it may be, hopefully he takes these principles with him, is that the kid had talent from day one. Like his parents are super, super talented, right?
Yeah.
This is basketball.
Yep.
I mean, Dustin played played in college as well. So it's like he had the talent in there.
Yep.
But I've never seen anybody work harder than that kid.
No.
And that's the thing is, if you have the tools and you don't put forth the effort and the work, so you got to put the work in.
Yep.
And I tell my kids all the time. I tell them, this is a PG podcast, by the way.
It's all we can say whatever we want.
Look, if you are not embracing the suck,
Yes.
then you're not doing something right.
Yep.
Like if for people who say things like it's too hard.
Yeah.
You want it to be hard.
Yep.
If it's easy, there's no benefit to that, man.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You want that hard to be hard.
Oh, now you're talking.
You know?
Now you're talking. We say all the time.
It's hard for you guys to drive down an hour and change.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yes.
But you know what? You got to choose your hard, dude.
That's it.
It's like, is it hard 10 years from now when you're struggling, you're on blood pressure medication?
Right.
That's hard. So either way, it's going to be hard for you.
There it is.
Choose which
There
hard.
it is.
If you
There
do
it
the
is.
hard now,
Yep.
it's the two paths of
Yes.
you choose the hard now, it's easy later. If you choose the easy now, it's hard later. And the hard later is always sucky.
Yes.
It's always worse.
It is. And there's so many good things that we in this podcast already. I'm just loving this, but I want to get into I want you to explain you're talking about right now, the affirmations and rewiring subconscious. You're an expert at this. Tell our listeners what the conscious and subconscious actually is, and why and what we should do about knowing what that is.
Knowing how to tap that in.
Yeah.
So the subconscious is like it's like the captain to the ship. It's basically all your old trained patterns, memories, habits from everything you've been experienced from the world. Everything you experienced from your mother, your father, your teacher, your preachers, all the people that have kind of molded you into the version you are yourself. When I told you when I got to Indy, who I was a byproduct of everything that was fed to me, right, from the outside world.
That's it.
That is the subconscious, and the subconscious has a trapdoor.
Right.
And the conscious mind is the stuff that, someone brings, Dr. Matt's wife, Dr. Kara, tells me, she's like, you're really disciplined with your nutrition and your exercise. And the fact of the matter is that I don't believe in I don't believe in willpower. I don't believe that word even exists. Discipline is a muscle. And if you do the disciplines that you're supposed to be doing over and over and over again, that muscle gets stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yep.
And if any of you are having trouble starting something, I'm going to tell you right now, the 30 days that you start something is the hardest component.
That's it.
But you get through that 30 days, that neurology becomes habitual. Like the synapses become habitual. This is the reason why we start people on a very high frequency in care, is because they've got all these learned patterns of adaptation. You can't change a automatic, subconscious, neurological pattern of adaptation by getting adjusted every so often.
That's it.
It just doesn't change.
It does not.
You will never develop a new foundation.
Right.
That's how your body self-regulated on its own, was because of repetition. Right? So in order the conscious mind is the stuff that someone brings a piece of cake to you. If you already have the neurological habits of, this is not something that's in my budget to eat today, I'm not going to eat it. Right? I mean, so it's not discipline. That's just neural habit, and that is trapped into the subconscious. But in order to get from the conscious mind would be, I'm having a piece of cake, not even thinking about it. Right?
Right.
How many times you picked up a donut when someone brings donuts?
Yep.
Like, I just eat it. And then before you know it, you had 3, you don't even realize it.
Right.
That's the conscious mind kind of taking over.
Yep.
The subconscious mind is really who you are and inside. Right?
That's it.
Who you have
That's
molded
it.
yourself into inside.
That's it.
And the only way to train the subconscious is through everything we just talked about.
That's it.
Repetition. Who you think and believe you are.
Right.
And that's why written down affirmations or written down I am statements are so important, because if you believe right now, subconsciously, you will hear it in your conscious voice. If you say things like, I'm never going to get pregnant, I'm never going to lose weight, I'm too fat, I can't be successful, those are subconscious neurological habits that are embedded into that.
You are
subconscious
lending
mind.
energy to those thoughts.
And you're bringing it every time, because that's all you think about. Right? There's the old saying, you become who you think about.
That's it.
Right? So how do you change who you become?
Right.
Well, you change who you become by repetition.
Thoughts and words.
It's really simple. If you break it down, it's simple. The problem is that I tell people about this in practice all the time, that if you could get rid of two ideologies that you have, 2 subconscious mental thoughts that you have. Number 1, get rid of the illusion of time. Forget about the time it will take you.
That's it.
Because if you are so focused, now don't get me wrong, it's okay to write down goals in a time frame. And I think that writing down goals in a time frame, in a specific time frame, is very important, because it taps into your subconscious. Whether you know how you're going to get there or not, it's in your subconscious mind that you're going to accomplish it by this time. Plus, it'll also motivate you to get things done. So I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about outcome and results. I tell people, if you can get rid of the illusion of time, and you can get rid of the outcomes, forget about the outcome and forget about the time. There's a reason why I don't see 9,000 people a week in my practice.
Facts.
And the reason is, people think that they should have gotten results in a certain time frame.
That's it.
And B, if they either get results or they don't get results, they think either I'm fixed or it doesn't work.
Right.
And those 2 mindsets destroy future healing for that individual.
That's it.
You will never, I tell patients all this time, you will never shut your nervous system off.
Right.
You will live the rest of your life through this nervous system. You have 2 choices: to manage it and care for it. And not to worry about the outcomes and the time frames that it takes to get there, because eventually, over time, it will.
It will.
Or you could focus on outcomes and time, quit because either you feel better, or quit because you didn't get the results in the time you've had. And then what are you doing for the rest of your life?
Right.
Then you're chalking up to chemicals and medications and surgeries, because all you're going to rely on at that point in time, because eventually the body will fail. It will create imbalance. And there's nothing you can do to bring the body back to balance without caring for that central system, unless you want to take drugs for the rest of your life, which doesn't fix anything either.
That's exactly right, which segues perfectly into, this is so good, so good. Tell us about traditional chiropractic care and what you do, because that's so important of what you do to help you understand the conscious, the subconscious, how that actually plays a part.
Right.
So
I mean, it's everything I'm telling you that I did in the repetition of how I created the version of myself where I am right now. Right?
That's right.
It's through repetition. It's through consistency. It's again, we take care of so many things in our life. Most of your people who listen to this have been taking care of their teeth since they've been babies, right? Because they've been told to take care of their teeth. Right? And a lot of that came through, advertising through dentistry in the 50s. Like, literally, they started advertising. Prior to that, I mean, I remember my great uncle, my great aunt, my grandfather, they all had dentures because they weren't taught to take care of their teeth. Right? Then in the 50s come around, they start advertising. Colgate starts advertising toothbrushes and toothpaste, and see your dentist regularly. People, the whole entire spectrum of dentistry changed to where now that you care for your teeth, whether you have a toothache or not.
Right.
And that's how we raise our kids. In chiropractic, there's a stigma of you only go when you have a symptom. That's like showing up to the gym only when you get fat, and then the second you get unfat, I'm good.
You quit.
Right? So you have to understand, what we do is we figure out how the body reacts to what it is that we're doing to change a pattern. Because everything in that spine, that's why God gave you a spine.
Right.
You know, in that spine is your life force. That controls everything. You could ask any doctor, that's where all the lifeline comes from. And you sever or interfere with that lifeline, things don't work the way they're supposed to.
That's right.
Right? So if you can care for that in a condition to where, not based on symptoms, but based on retracing a pattern and the management of how much stress you're under. Because when you get under stress severely, all of those old patterns that you develop, and the same thing with life, right? With your mental status.
Right.
You could tell me that you're cool as a cucumber. The second something hits the fan, what's coming out? All that fear, worry, anxiety, doubt you created. Because that's basically what molded you into that version of yourself.
That's it.
Your neurology it's all neurology. It's all the same thing. It's all runs through the nerve system. It works the same way. That's what we do differently.
I love that. So, as I mentioned, 6 and 4-year-old, Courtney and I have a 6 and 4-year-old, and we bring them to you. Why is it important for kids to come to you?
Most adults don't realize that all of their adult stuff that they deal with, asthma, allergies, Crohn's disease, digestive problems, anxiety, stems from neurological patterns they developed when they were children. The first 20 years is the foundation of their neurological development. They're growing and developing. And think about how bombarded they are with stressors, drugs, vaccines, traumas, bullying, social media, phone. I mean, think our food now is more toxic than it's ever been before.
We could do a whole podcast on that.
You got all of these stressors molding that child's nerve system into the version of their adult version of themselves.
That's right.
As a child. If you're not caring for that neurological system as a child, what kind of random patterns and habits are they developing?
One thing that we noticed with Caroline as a 4-year-old snored. And when
4-year-olds aren't supposed to snore. Man. That's not normal.
No, the girl snores. And when she started going to you, we saw the snoring disappear.
And it's not. And again, the snoring was the body's adaptation of abnormal. Right. And then when we create restoration, the body knows how to do its own healing. It's amazing what we're blessed with, man. It's unbelievable.
So you talked about the spine. And the importance of taking care of the spine. Why is it important when you're not symptomatic, with the spine specifically?
Remember, if anybody has ever become symptomatic of something, my question to them always is, before you became symptomatic, did you know you had a problem? And most people are like, no. You have to have an underlying pattern of dysfunction before everybody ever gives you a symptom. You're either taking care of the system or you're taking care of the symptom. And the problem is when you try to take care of the symptom, you never resolve the system. So it's management of the system versus management of the symptom. And if you can manage the system, why would the body ever need to give you a signal if it's perfectly imbalanced?
That's it.
People look at this stuff, I hear it all the time. Oh, I don't get migraines, I just get normal headaches. There's no such thing as normal headaches. Any symptom your body gives you is an innate signal of imbalance. And if you could understand where that comes from, instead of trying to address the symptom with supplements or drugs or whatever it may be, and get to the core reason of why the body created imbalance in the symptom in the first place, you don't fail because you're addressing the system and not the symptom.
I love that, Dr. Mike. And speaking of symptoms, we all have symptoms in our life, in our mind, body, spirit, of adversity, that we're going through adversity. In fact, in the Bible, in the book of James, it talks about adversity's promised. Like it's coming at you.
You can't get rid of it.
You wake up into it every single day. I'm putting you on the spot here. Curious of a time that you went through some adversity. And we talk a lot about adversity in our mindset training. And at the time, it was hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It happens. But you went through the adversity. And hindsight being 20/20, you can look back and now you're grateful for it. Tell us a story of when you went through a time of adversity and it helped mold you and shape you into the person you were supposed to become.
Again, we can spend 2 hours on this topic, but I'll try to Cliff Note version it for you. So, like I was telling you before,
Yep.
I brought Dr. Matt and Dr. Kara on to help me with the systems. I was going through I had a partner at the time. I was going through a partner split up, and our office manager knew that the partner and I that worked together didn't communicate very well.
Yep.
Which goes to the fact that communication is the key to any relationship, including your body.
Facts. Ooh, like it.
Right. So the communication was off.
Right.
We didn't talk to each other. We actually didn't probably much care for each other. I respected them, but we didn't care for much each other because the company was not good.
Yep.
Anyway, so she played that against us and started charging all of her TV, rugs, couches on our company credit card. And she was smart enough to know that the credit cards were only off by 2 numbers. So when you look at the credit card statement, you wouldn't second guess it because it's 2 numbers. And,
Right.
You know,
You don't even.
so she basically, she wound up racking over a period of 3 to 4 years of a substantial amount of money. Like to where I wasn't able to, I would go to her and be like, well, I don't understand what's going on here. I need food for the month, blah, blah, blah. And there was nothing left because she was taking it all. Anyway, we found out that after hiring stuff, we found out that she did it, and she has to pay us back for the rest of her life. But besides the fact, so that was very, very trying because I had to hire, my ex-partner blamed me, thought it was me stealing.
Sure.
She thought it was me stealing from the company. So I had to hire an attorney against my old partner to fight for this. When it eventually wound up finding out that it was her, he found out it was her, not me. So, $80,000 of my own money later, $350,000 of the business money that she embezzled. This is where, going through that adversity, and if I look back at it now, I would have doubled down on everything I knew. That so what I didn't do during that time, and I was a lot younger then, I didn't focus on my mindset. I had no connection to God at that time. I had no connection to my nutrition was off. I was getting adjusted here and there. Was not getting adjusted consistently. My exercises in the toilet. I mean, literally, the stress consumed me, right?
Of course.
Because again, when you're squeezed, what comes out? Old habits.
That's it.
And so it took my spine from a very healthy spine. Within 2 to 3 years, it turned my spine into a complete disaster with decay and erosion. I have it still to this day. So this is why I implore when I talk to people about stress that, look, this is the time you need to double down on everything I've taught you.
That's
right?
it.
Because if you don't know it, because you don't know it when you're in the woods.
That's it.
Right?
That's
but when
it.
you get out of it, you're exhausted, you're run down, your system is broke.
Yeah.
So how I deal with adversity now is, I have multiple tools of learning. I mean, no lesson in life that you fail at, unless you do it over and over again, becomes a failure, right?
That's right.
You learn from those lessons. And I had to fail at that hard to know how to not only handle and manage my business practices, right, which is completely different and very specific at this point in time. But also how I handled that adversity. And and the good news is that I know that there's going to be stuff flying at my face on a daily basis. When you're kind of in the minority as it relates to health, I get beat down by people every single day. So I know that adversity comes.
That's right.
And I just have different ways of handling it at this point in time. Again, all the things, whether it be praying, meditating, affirming, exercising, getting adjusted more, all the things, focusing, doubling down on my nutrition. Those are all things that I do during times of strife and adversity to make sure that I'm able to get through it so I don't kill myself in the process. Really, that's the bottom line.
I love that.
Too long of a version for you?
No, it's perfect. That was absolutely perfect. And all you listeners, I this is, like I mentioned already, this is an epic podcast. And all of you listeners, I know that you now see, for those of you faithful listeners, each and every week, you see why I am so in love with Premier and Dr. Mike and what their mission and what they do, and how this is so aligned. But Dr. Mike, take somebody into your locker room, so to speak. I'm coming to you. Let's just say I'm coming to you. My mind's not right. And I know you're a man who's in the Word, who follows the Spirit, and I need some encouragement. So just kind of pretend that I'm coming to you. I need some encouragement. I need fired up. I need some more juice. What are you going to tell me?
So I have my patients who know and who are practice members of mine know this, that look, I am, if you are committed to yourself, I am committed to jumping through whatever I need to jump through for you, man. Like I will, I can't tell you how many kids I've adjusted in the babies I've adjusted in the hospital, people I've adjusted in the hospital, right? Gone to people's homes when they can't make it. The thing about it is and I don't look at this as something to brag upon, but I want you to understand that the quality and the character of the people in our community in Premier, and this is why I love working with the people I love with. We know that who we serve,
that's
right?
it,
and we know who we work for.
That's it.
You know what I mean? And the fact of the matter is that if you know who you serve and you know who you work for, it doesn't really matter whether they can't get out of bed and you have to go see them.
Right.
Dr. Matt right now is going up to drive. He sees people in the Amish, kind of drives an hour to go see people and adjust the Amish people. So again, it's just it's a server's mentality.
That's it.
We huddle and pray before every shift. We pray over our patients. It's just being intentional about who we are in every single adjustment and every single encounter that I have with people. And I would tell you, if you're looking to become more successful in any right, whether it be basketball, whether it be your job, if you could be intentional in every encounter you have, you're serving the man right there. I mean, that's just the way it is.
That's it.
And don't let the interference and distractions change the version of you who you are. You know, I mean that's what we do, and that we focus intentionally to be able to do that. We've all all of us docs, we've got our own stuff going on. We got kids, we got life.
Exactly.
Right? But the second my hit the door to open, that is gone. And it is
locked in.
Game time. It's dialed, right? It's locked.
That's it.
And I think that if you take that approach with any aspect of your life, you're going to be the best version of yourself.
100%.
Eliminate the noise. You know what I mean?
I love that word committed that you said at the very beginning of that answer too. Like, what are you committed to? And listeners, I'm asking you, what are you committed to? Are you committed to taking care of your mind, your body, and your spirit on a daily, weekly basis? Are you committed to doing the affirmations? Are you committed to doing the journaling? Are you committed to reading, to exercising, to going to the chiropractor, to all the things that make you at the best version of yourself? Are you committed to doing that, or are you going to let something else run your life? And that control is up to you. And
I would just encourage your listeners, especially if you're trying to get better at the version of yourself who you are, just remember that forget about the time, forget about the outcome. Because if you focus on the restoration of yourself and focus on building yourself in God's image the way it's supposed to be done, you're going to get those outcomes. They will come to you.
It's going to happen.
It's just going to happen.
Forget
about the time piece, man. Everything takes time. It does. But you know what? Take your mindset off the time.
Time isn't real, and the future is a made-up concept. Period. Get it out.
Yeah.
Dr. Mike, as we wrap up, how can we get your services? What platforms? What's your website? What's your social media? What are some great things you have going on right now that we can tap into? I drive an hour and 15 minutes. I did 3 times a week, 2 times a week, now once a week. How can we get involved?
Yeah, you can follow us on social media. We've got an Instagram and a Facebook account. It's Premier Family Carmel. Our website's premierfamilycarmel.com. And that's the
put that in the show notes.
Best way to you give us a follow. You'll see some of the stuff that we do on a consistent basis. We have someone who constantly posts all that. All that good stuff that I don't know how to do, but that's all right. That's all good. I stay in my lane.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's great, and I'm here to serve, man. So
I love
that's the way it is.
Dr. Mike, truly, thank you. You're a brother of mine. I appreciate you more than you know.
Man. This has been great.
This has been awesome. I can't wait to go back and go through this myself with my journal and take all the wisdom that you gave us.
Yeah.
And CTA family, thank you for joining us each and every week. Always remember that competing is doing what God calls you to do even when it's hard.